The moment you panic is the moment you lose. This is how to take it back. Hey, I'm Dr. Lana Denny, Bulletproof Babes, self-defense based on behavioral sciences. I just did this really cool interview with Jill from A Little Bit of Woo Woo, and you're going to see some self-defense tips that you're not going to see in other places, especially if it's going down the path of this. So give it a watch. It's going to help you, and I'll see you soon.
Hi guys, welcome to A Little Bit of Woo Woo. I'm your host, Jill Thomas. We're gonna do a woo woo extra today. I'm super excited. Oh my god, you guys. We're gonna get I feel like I'm fangirling right now because I love this lady's channel, you guys. We're gonna do an intuitive approach to personal safety. I wanted to bring this lady on because you guys are all freaking out about what's going on in the world. I am too, not lying. 3 fingers back at myself on that one. But our guest today is a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Lana Denny. And I'm just going to tell you right now, this is not medical advice. Neither one of us are doctors, lawyers, stock portfolio managers, none of that thing. This is just 2 people's opinion, and she's the expert, so listen to her, okay? So I'm going to let Dr. Denny introduce herself because she's got a great introduction. Tell us what you are, Dr. Denny.
All right. I'm Dr. Lana Denny, Bulletproof Babes, self-defense based on behavioral sciences. Sorry, Jill, I had to do it, man. And I got to tell you, I love what you're doing here because what most people consider woo-woo is really instincts that we haven't learned how to trust yet.
I love that you bring this up because you guys watching know that I am also a hypnotherapist. And every time somebody comes into my office who has been SA'd, they've had a bad experience, the conversation always starts with, I knew something was off with this guy. Or, oh my God, I don't even tell you how many times this conversation has happened. I met this guy at church and I knew something was off. And I just thought, well, I met him from church. He must be okay. Like, tell us a little bit about what we should know about that idea, that concept that you have to keep going, even if something feels a little weird.
Yeah, so let me just first of all dispel a myth that I think a lot of women have, and that is that when they think of a crime like that, they're thinking somebody's lurking in the parking lot, and you're going out to your car, and that person's going to jump out and abduct you. And there's certainly a percentage of crimes that fit that profile, but not the majority. For women, unfortunately, we are SA'd 3 out of 5 times by somebody that's already known to you. And 75% of women murdered knew their attacker. Mm-hmm. So what I decided to do with Bulletproof Babes is let's start that self-defense process way back here, where that first encounter where you're meeting this person, not where you're having to fight this person. I mean, we do that too when we do live trainings, but you can't really teach somebody how to fight through a screen.
I love that too, because I've shared with you guys in the show. My brother used to teach self-defense classes and I enjoyed them, but my complaint was always that they were like in the moment. They're not stuff that people are actually going to think to do. And one of the reasons I really wanted to have Dr. Denny on is because her videos are short and it's like practical stuff that anybody could do. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is this idea, because when I was a kid, it was, just kick him in the nuts, right? Does that really work?
No. I know, because I've got literally 3 decades of combat arts. I used to box for money, and then I did a smattering of traditional martial arts, and then my big training was it was over 12 years in Krav Maga, and that is a military combative taught to the Israeli Special Forces, and they licensed that and they brought it over to the United States, and they have franchises, Krav Maga worldwide, and that is the original system taught, and that's all hand-to-hand combat. Your life is at stake right here. You're not going to see that in any tournaments because you're immediately trying to negate the threat, and that is a very PC way of saying you're going to hit somebody in the throat, you're going to hit them in the eyes, you're going to do something to take them out right away because your life is in danger.
I love what you're saying and let's talk about a couple of things one thing actually happened to me, and I shared this when I show you guys that when I was in San Francisco a few years ago, I was with a group of people and clearly mentally ill and probably homeless person sort of targeted me and he wanted to grab my purse, right? And I think I screamed and ran, but like, I know this kind of the encounter that people are afraid of, because that's the one we think about. We don't think about the guy that we met from work and we go have drinks with them after work. Although that's the one we really should be thinking about. We think about the homeless person that's creepy, that's scaring us when we're walking back to our car after going shopping. What would you say to defend yourself against that?
Yeah. So just because I owned a business in San Francisco's notorious Tenderloin district, it's a neighborhood famous for all the wrong reasons. There's a huge population of unhoused people struggling with mental health crises. So I've dealt with this population a lot. And, it's really interesting because I read all the training manuals for many, many different self-defense programs. There's not a definitive way. Nobody has a chapter on how to deal with this particular type of situation, which I found really interesting. But from my own personal experience, and this is me, this is my opinion, what I've dealt with in my life, when they come at you like that, like very aggressively, is to match that level of aggression, not cower away. If you cower away, that is like a green signal for them to keep, they're experiencing a little bit of power now, and they're going to keep after you, so I would, and this has happened to us many times. Somebody's come after me or after my wife as we're walking to the office. I'll be, get the F away from me, get away. Also, I want to, just for the ladies out here, if you're ever in a situation like that, there is a mantra I want you to know and a physical posture I want you to take. Okay. And that is, you put your hands up like this.
I'm
having to use a fake background here because it's so bright behind me. And you have your hands up and you scream, "Get back. I don't know you." And you keep repeating that. First of all, it's a direct command. It's not something that's offensive. And it confuses that person. Oh my God, now you're shouting a command at them. And the "I don't know you" is a broadcast to people around you that this is not a domestic situation.
Oh,
people don't want to get involved, the husband and wife having a domestic violence situation on the street or something like that. But the "I don't know you" is very clear that this is a stranger. In addition, when you have your hands up like this, and it's more of like this, one's in front, one's in back, you have a foot behind you, so you can't be pushed over easily. If you do have to defend yourself, your hands are already up around your face. Because if you take a hit anywhere in here, like the knockout zone, you don't want that to happen, right? So then you're going to be unconscious on the street. So you got your face guarded. And also, if they do come at you, then your hands are already here and you can punch so much faster. You're not trying to bring your hand up from your side. And I'll tell you, what's funny is like we were trained in this in crowd, trained. And it's actually come up twice for me on the street in a real situation, and one not that long ago. And it really worked.
I love it. I love
this
it.
wasn't a person. This was somebody bullying a senior citizen on the street, and I just couldn't watch it anymore. And I'm like, no, somebody has to step in here and save this lady. And that's, and I drew the guy's attention, and that it played out just like that. And I didn't even have to throw a punch. So it really works. And it's a great defensive maneuver.
It's troubling to me that, a domestic situation, people don't want to get involved. And I do understand. I mean, I don't agree, but I do understand. But it's like, oh, a stranger, well, that's a real crime, right? Like, it's always a real crime. It's a real crime both ways. Gosh. Okay. So you did a video recently that I loved, and I want you to tell us, it was about how to tell if somebody's lying. And I've seen this one. I've seen this play out, you guys. I actually saw this happen where somebody came up running up to, I was with a group of people. They ran up to the prettiest, youngest looking women in the crowd and said, "Oh my God, my baby is not breathing. And can you help?" Well, my friend, this person, didn't know CPR, but she was like, her first instinct was, "I'm going to go help. It's a baby. Oh my God." They were totally lying. I could tell from their body language that they were lying. And I said, stop. Let's call 911. And then I said, let's have Elon go. he didn't know so CPR either. But as soon as I said, hey, Elon's going to go, he's going to go help the baby. He's looking at me going, what? They stopped and they drove off. But tell us how, like that I could see almost anybody falling for that one. How do you tell if somebody's lying? What's an easy way to tell?
Well, that's a combination of two different things. So yeah, they were lying, but they were also playing on your friend's empathy.
Yep.
Right. So, you've seen my videos on YouTube for Bulletproof Babes. They're all subtle psychological cues that somebody has bad intent in a myriad of ways. But as far as the lying, so in my latest video, and this was just a really simple technique, is that when people start giving an excessive amount of details, that is a tip off. Now, I also got a lot of comments like, hey, I'm neurodivergent, or I get really nervous, and so I run out the mouth with a bunch of excessive details anyway. Yeah, it's not 100%.
See that.
Plus, there's a percentage of people out there who are professional liars. They're trained in deception, right? They're either, they're professional con men, or they work in the intelligence community. And then it's almost impossible to tell if somebody's lying. As a matter of fact, there's a very infamous case. There was a double agent from Cuba who was part of our intelligence community, and had risen through the ranks. And she was, it's a very famous case. It wasn't CIA. I'm sorry, I can't remember. It was one of those,
three-letter initial deals.
Yeah, 3 initial deals. Thank you. And she didn't get found out for, I think it was like 15 years. So, I mean, and these are people trained at detecting lies, but some people can be very well trained in deception.
I love the example you gave too. It's like, because I was just thinking about, when you ask somebody, did you cheat? And they give you like an essay about why they didn't cheat. And you're like, they totally cheated. No, why would you think that? That's an honest answer, right? That's somebody's being honest. But I just maybe this and then I don't know, and then she has this friend, and come on. I love that. Okay, so there's something I wanted to ask you about, and I don't know if you have an answer for this, but I'm going to ask anyway. So some people, when they get unsafe, they freeze, and we've seen this when something bad has happened. The instant, like, what just happened? That freeze. Any tips for that? Like, because that's kind of a natural human thing. We freeze, we want to assess. What would you say to somebody who's concerned that in the moment something bad's going to happen? They're not going to, turn tail and run right away.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And there's the biological basis for that is that when we're under an extreme threat like that, the sympathetic nervous system fires. And so we have the parasympathetics, which are kind of digestion and sleep and all the restorative processes of the body. The sympathetic nervous system is fight, flight, or freeze. So it's like our reaction to that saber-toothed tiger that was chasing us back, when we were all living in caves, right? And so one of the ways, there's a few ways to overcome that. First of all, what the Navy SEALs do is they do box breathing. So as you can imagine, SEALs are in life and death situations all the time, and they have to really control that sympathetic nervous response. And so it's a process of breathing in for a count of 4, holding it for a count of 4, breathing out for a count of 4, holding that for a count of 4, and then exhaling. So did I say that right? Yes.
Yeah, you did.
You're starting, you're breathing in, holding it, you're breathing out, holding it.
You want to pause? You want to pause?
Kind of go around. Yeah, you kind of go around in this circle, and it literally slows down your heartbeat. So it slows down your heart rate, and it starts getting you back into control of that. Now, that's one way to do it. Another way, and this was a big training in Krav Maga. Oh my God. They would constantly invoke that experience in us. They would do the most effed up things. They'd put you in a blacked out room, blasting the most obnoxious acid rock you can possibly imagine, a strobe light flashing, and you're going to get choked. You're going to get choked from some
You're
angle.
not, I'm
You're
not
going to get
taking this
choked from the
class.
front. You're going to get choked from the back. You're going to, you know, you're going to get choked from the side.
Okay.
And, you know, as you can imagine, like there's part of your brain that's going like, okay, yeah, this is a class. I'm not really going to die. But there's another part of your body that's going like, oh my God, what angle am I going to get choked from? When's it going to come? You know? And it's like, it's really all about controlling that response. So for the average person, maybe you don't want to put yourself through that, or you don't have access to that.
Yes.
Doing things that are constantly adrenaline stimulating is a way to desensitize yourself to that sensation. So whether that could be something as subtle as walking in a new classroom, or doing something that you haven't done before, or maybe if you're shy, you're at a party, but you're going to go up and you're going to talk to a stranger. So things that constantly kind of make you a little uncomfortable, a little like this feeling. And let me just say, you know, after that training in Krav, I got asked to do a fight for Everlast. It was a fitness exhibition. And I want you to picture this last minute. And I owed this trainer a favor. And at the time, I was 45 years old, right? I hadn't trained. I was not really in ring shape. I had 2 weeks to get ready for this fight and do like cardio every day and just try to get myself ready. And, you know, when I stepped into the ring, and as you can imagine, this is quite an adrenaline producing situation. There's a crowd. You're doing battle with another person in a ring. And I got to tell you, I had zero sympathetic nervous response. I was just like, okay, here we are, you know. And I fought in that expo. I won, by the way, against a girl who's 23.
See, okay, so I love this, even though this is an example I know a lot of people are maybe not necessarily going to relate to. But if you think about it, this is a great example because she went outside of her comfort zone in order to practice. And then when the moment happened, when somebody gave you an opportunity to do an exhibition for fun with no practice, you were able to jump right into the deep end of the pool and go, yeah, I can swim. I know how to swim. I love it. I love that. That's good for, you know, you guys all like try things that are new. I think that's really good advice. As we start to wrap this up, is there any advice that you think that I didn't think to ask you about? First of all, I know that, you know, we started kind of hinted at, you know, what you would recommend in terms of training. Is that anything other than Krav Maga? What would you recommend?
Yeah. So if I may just like dispel a couple myths
please.
About self-defense, because I think so much of what we envision is something that we see on TV or we see in these little TikTok clips or something like that. When you think of, you go to your typical, even martial arts studio, let's just stick with self-defense. You go to a self-defense class. 9 out of 10 times that's going to be taught by a guy, right? And there's nothing wrong with those guys. A lot of those guys are my friends, but they're teaching you to defend yourself against the way that men are attacked. Just like men are attacked by strangers. That's the statistics. Women are attacked by people that they know. So automatically you're already starting off with this, right? And I've taught so many live workshops and I've seen that women, a lot of women cannot do this. They just don't, they cannot channel that anger into a decent punch. They can't, you know, they've been socialized out of it. So it's like, why are you training for that instead of training about like how to have really good boundaries and how to trust your intuition about people? Because there's been large bodies of studies that have shown that women have far better intuition skills than men do. We're better at reading subtle facial cues, emotions. We have greater synapses between the two sides of the brain. But yet we get trained out of that, right? We get trained out of trusting those instincts because, you know, we should be polite or we should be agreeable. All that garbage programming that men don't have to grow up with. And so that's why, you know, you meet somebody at church, well, he feels a little off, but he's at my church and well, he's offering me a ride home and he's just trying to be nice. And then, you know, a woman ends up getting essayed in the car, right? It's like, so it's all that. Put away the garbage programming. You know, realize what intersubjective realities that you have bought into. That's a big one for women, and that's something that we train when I do a live seminar. And may I just explain what that is for your?
Yeah. And we're definitely I'm gonna put a link to her socials in the channel. I also want you guys to go to Bulletproof Babes her videos are short. They're very practical. They're really great advice. And go ahead and tell us what you want to tell us. Sorry.
Okay. So what an intersubjective reality is that I want to tell you that there's three realities, right? There's an objective reality. Like if you told me, hey, I don't believe in gravity, and I do this with a pen, it's like it's going to fall. And it doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. It's an objective reality. A subjective reality is if Jill, you said to me, hey, I think small cars are better than big cars because they save on gas more, they're easier to park, and they're better for the environment. That is your subjective reality, because I would say, oh, no, I like big cars because you're safer on the highway, you can carry more people, more load, right? So those are our subjective realities. Now, here's the tricky one. An intersubjective reality means that it's something that people have bought into, but it doesn't really exist as an objective reality.
Oh, I love
that. Clear?
Yes, it is. I'm thinking of politics right now.
I'll just tell you, like a very neutral one is a dollar bill. Or, if I pull up a 20, we've all agreed it has this intrinsic value. But if I was starving in the woods of Alaska, can I eat that thing? Can I put it on my body? No, I can't. Right? We've just all kind of agreed, oh, yeah. And so where you see this play out a lot is in women and I think religious organizations that, oh, you're supposed to be a certain way and you're supposed to be agreeable and not show anger. And a lot of that garbage programming then plays into the fact that when these women take these self-defense classes, they cannot channel their anger into a strike. Like it's just going against some sort of self-image. And also, I don't want anybody to think that because you take a single self-defense course, you'll learn some good things. You might even make some friends. But are you going to be able to use that maybe 2 years down the line when something happens on the street and you're having a sympathetic nervous reaction and you're like, oh, now where are my hands supposed to go? And how am I supposed to throw that punch? So let me leave this with 3 really important concepts that I want women to know if you're going to engage in battle. First one is you have to wait for your opportunity. When people are bigger and stronger, somebody who attacks you, they're presumably going to be bigger and stronger. And maybe you may not have an opportunity until it presents itself in the moment. I'll give you a great story, and this is really happened, and you'll see this. So this college-age woman, she was in her dorm room on the top bunk. The bottom bunk was empty. Her roommate was still out. And a guy entered her room, and she woke up with this guy on top of her. And he had her arms pinned. Now, she had just taken a self-defense course and learned this. Did she try to fight him then? No, she would have used up her strength. Her arms are pinned, right? So what did he do? He had to let go of one arm. Well, guess what? His arms are engaged too. He had to let go of one arm to try to get at his zipper. That was her opportunity. Now she's got one arm free. And what she did, and this is the second concept, she chose her target. She zeroed in right on the target of his throat. She hit him here in the throat and rolled. She didn't try to push him up. She rolled. They fell off the top bunk, him on the bottom, her on top, and she actually crushed his trachea and killed him. Yay, one less predator in the world. So here it is. You wait for your opportunity. You pick your target like a laser. I'm going to go for his eyes. I'm going to go for the throat. You're going to go for some area that you know is going to take that person out. And then the third one is you commit to it with everything you've got. Every molecule of life force in your body is going to go into that strike.
I love it. Forgive me right now. I always love to record things on trash day, you guys. And so that's why every time you hear a video that's posted on a Friday, there's usually a beeping in the, sorry about that. I love that advice. This is so great. And one of the things, I love what you're saying about the 3 realities, especially because for some reason girls are always taught that we can't hurt guys' feelings. I mean, they're just like the most delicate of creatures. When you actually ask a guy who asks a lot of women out on dates, what happens when a woman says no? He says, well, she's just got to ask the next one. It's like not that big of a deal. Like guys are not so delicate, you guys. It's okay to hurt their feelings. Say no. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so one last question for you. I know that you're a chiropractor, and that you also have this side business, which I love. I am all for side businesses. You guys know I tell you this every, get a freaking side business. How did you get into this?
Whew, man. Okay, we're going to go to the woo-woo of your show.
I love that. Woo-woo, yes.
Yeah, because I had a really big business up until 2020. I had 9 independent contractors. I had 5 employees. I had a city contract for the Municipal Transit Authority. I mean, it was, and then the shutdown happened, and it all went away. I had to lay everybody off. We were allowed to stay open, but I went from like, 150 patients a week to like 30 patients a week, and these are, so I came home and I wasn't really freaking out. I was just kind of like, that was such a big shock, I think, to all of us during that period of time, right? And then I got a message, and from a higher power, and I'm not like a holy roller, right? I'm not like one of those, but I have gotten maybe 5 big messages in my lifetime, and they have been big things, and they've been the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And so the message was, how many times I've saved you, and you've got this huge background in combat arts. You've studied behavioral sciences for over 2 decades, which I have. And you've been in so many different situations that were life or death, or I was about to get essayed, and somehow I got out of that. I was like, you need to put a course together for women. And by the way, I'm not anti-guy at all. Most of my friends are actually guys, and some of the stuff, a lot of my tapes have to do with them too, and the techniques that they can use. But the psychological aspect of it hits women, I think, particularly hard. And I was like, oh my God, where do I even start with this? I was just clueless. And I'll tell you, can I just tell you my first gig? Because it's almost hysterical. During COVID, I did a lot of volunteering for the Department of Public Health here. And I did this one thing that I showed up for, and my wife and I showed up for. And all the ladies there were African American. That's great. We were kind of like, oh, well, this is interesting, and they were so nice to us, so gracious. Like, I can't believe you're here helping us with this thing. And the leader of their program, I said to her, hey, I'm starting this company, and I don't have it ready yet, but can I call you in like 6 months, and maybe I can do something for your ladies? And she's like, yeah. So 6 months later, I call her up, and she's like, yeah, come on down. So I come down, and what it is this huge transitional housing thing for women. So a lot of these women had just gotten out of prison, or they've gotten out of homelessness or some other dire situation, and they're trying to regroup their lives. And so I'm sitting there before their board of directors. And once again, I'm the only non-African American person there. And I can imagine how somebody was African American and they're talking to an entire whiteboard, so it's like, I get it. This isn't a racial thing at all, but and she says to me, what would you like to lecture about? And Jill, I had just gotten over having COVID, and I had that brain fog, and it went, I didn't have a single thought in my mind as I'm looking at all these nice ladies looking at me. And all I said was, I can guarantee you that you will not be disappointed, and you will get your money's worth. And that was good enough.
I love it. Oh my God, that's so awesome. I love it.
And I did this program for them, and it was fantastic. And at the end, they were all coming up and hugging me, and everybody was high-fiving, and I'm like, yeah, I'm on the right track here. This is what I need to do.
I love it. I love that the brain fog kind of kept you from coming up with a pitch. Because if your brain hadn't been fuzzy, right, you would have, well, we could do this and do that. It would have gone all over the place. But instead, you went right to the what's in it for me. What's in it for you is that you're not going to regret this. You're going to get your money's worth. Everybody's going to be happy. Okay. Yeah. Sign me up. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it. So everybody, thank you guys so much for liking and subscribing. I really appreciate that. Thank you for, liking the video, especially because when we have guests, I always think of a guest as like a guest in my home. And I really appreciate when you guys treat my guests with love and respect, because she's not getting paid for this. I mean, I might get a little bit if people click on the commercials that are in it, but this is volunteer right here. So that's why she's going to tell you about how to reach her? How do you reach you? I'm going to put it in the description, but sometimes people like to hear it, especially in the podcast version of this. How do they find you?
Yeah, there's Bulletproof Babes, where I have a big YouTube station.
Yeah, sign up for that right now, guys. Just do that.
Yeah. And then also, if you want to just, there's a link on my profile to sign up for our newsletter, which we put out free once a week. And I always do two videos a week. One is self-defense in real life and self-defense in our digital world, because now it involves so much social engineering and scams.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. She has a great video on a scam that I had not heard of. And then I watch it. And my husband does security for a company too. And we both watched this one on the CAPTCHA, like this fake CAPTCHA.
Oh, the CAPTCHA.
Oh my God, you guys.
Particularly sophisticated, because you're on a real website. Just the plug-in for the CAPTCHA has been infected.
Yeah, you guys gotta watch that one, because it's like, I could see a lot of people falling for that. Like even people who are really sophisticated. When you watch this, sometimes you're like, I wouldn't fall for that. That. But even my husband was like, oh my God, my office could fall for that. It's really crazy. Well, again, thank you so much, Dr. Denny. I really appreciate your time. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Thank you for liking and subscribing to her. You're going to, trust me, you're not going to regret this one, because their videos are awesome. They're shortish, which is nice, because I have a little touch of the ADD myself. I'm not going to lie. You're awesome. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.